Hello and welcome back to JM Football for another all JM NFL team video. After I took a little break, Dalton wasn't feeling too good. We're busy here. We're recording at the John Boy Media Warehouse. Ooh. And today we're going to be doing both offense and defense in this video. We want to fit it into one video. We don't want to separate it into two videos. We want to get through these positions. Dalton, let's start off with the most valuable position in all of sports. Oh!
Special teams coordinator. No?
Quarterback.
Oh, right, of course. This one is interesting. I think it could be one of two players. I went with Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. So Brock Purdy's been a little bit more efficient. I know EPA and CPOE do favor him slightly over Dak Prescott. I will say since week 6, Dak Prescott has been the best quarterback in football in many different categories, whether it's passing touchdowns, big-time worthy throw percentage. He is the reason why the Cowboys offense has been this electric. Yeah. They're number 1 in points per game so far this season in the NFL through week 14. He's got the most passing touchdowns out of any quarterback this year. PFF has graded him as the number 1 big-time throw percentage guy and number 1 turnover-worthy play percentage guy, which means he's making these big throws and minimizing the mistakes. And coming from a guy who led the league in interceptions with 14, it's a very impressive bounce back from Dak Prescott.
That's quite a turnaround, and I also think turnovers are such a volatile stat, like year by year, based on so many different scenarios. You can have wide receivers that don't get open. You can have a play call or, a play calling tendency one year and then it changes the next. Your offensive line, so many things could change year in and year out where, it's like turnover. If it's a quarterback that that they can take care of the football, you're going to trust that they're going to be able to take care of the football. And I think that's what the Dallas Cowboys are doing right now with Dak Prescott. A little worried heading into the year. Mike McCarthy taking over, a little bit more of an old head. Is this guy going to start to get conservative with Dak Prescott throwing all these interceptions last year? No, they're trusting him to throw these big-time throws. And I'm, as a Giants fan, I'm not glad. But in a way, because of how talented this Dallas team has been for a long time as a football fan, glad to see it paying off. And now, Dallas is entering that month of, December and January, the time in which they usually fall apart. We'll see if they can keep it going.
Oh, my gosh. And his play versus pressure, do want to say, outstanding, too. And that was one of the tiebreakers I had for Purdy.
Let's move to running back. A little bit obvious here.
CMC, I'll hammer it. I mean, he's got almost 1,200 rushing yards entering week 15. No other running back has more than 925 rushing yards. And if we're saying, oh, wow, CMC's been the greatest rusher in football, he's also been one of the best, if not the best, receiving back in football, too. First in receiving yards. He's also got 5 receiving touchdowns, which is first out of all running backs. He's got 12 rushing touchdowns, which is second most out of all running backs. Shout out Raheem Mostert, former Niners running back. KO. Receptions, he's second. CMC, potential offensive player of the year, pending Tyreek Hill's injury.
Yeah, totally just in the correct system that utilizes all of his strengths. So Christian McCaffrey, very, very clear. Let's move on to wide receiver. We're running out of 11 personnel here. We're going to have 3 wide receivers.
Yeah, there's so many good wide receivers in football. Like, I do want to give a quick shout out. Like, Brandon Ayuk's had an amazing year. Puka Nacua, rookie, fantastic. Mike Evans, 10 years, 10 amazing years.
He's inevitable.
Future Hall of Famer. Keenan Allen, good bounce back year. First, and sadly, he just got hurt going into this Thursday night game, though it's going to air, after that game. Jamar Chase, of course. But our 3 guys, I'll start with Tyreek Hill. Right now, probably the offensive player of the year favorite, if not the MVP favorite, pending that ankle injury he suffered. First in a lot of categories, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, first down, yards per route run. He is the most explosive player in football, as we've said every freaking week. And we saw on Monday night versus the Tennessee Titans, when he's not on the field, that Dolphins offense is way different and not in a good way.
Which, don't you measure almost like an MVP like that too?
The second word is valuable for a reason.
Right.
It's not most outstanding, it's most valuable.
Now, obviously, the quarterback that is putting up how many yards and touchdowns themselves is valuable from the statistical standpoint.
Absolutely.
But even though if you listen to these shows, if you listen to Power Rankings, if you're from the Giants side of things, I'm a big analytics guy. I'm not one of those people that's gonna put my fist in the ground and be like, the quarterback needs to be the MVP because of value, because of stats, and blah, 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 blah. You see what happens with the offense when Tyreek Hill isn't there, and the offense just absolutely could fall apart, and it does fall apart. So Tyreek Hill for MVP, even if he, we said about, I think we said this in November or even in October. We were like, if Tyreek Hill gets to 2,000 yards, then he has a good shot at MVP, but I don't think he's going to finish. He'll probably get close. He's going to need some super games to really finish off here if he wants to get anything close to it. But I still think he deserves it, no doubt. Give me the next guy.
A.J. Brown. He's been basically the second best receiver behind Tyreek Hill. Second in yards, second in first downs, receptions. He's fifth because he's that big play guy. He stretches the field for that Eagles offense. Receiving touchdowns, he's got 7, only 6, but that's still an impressive feat. A.J. Brown is another guy where if you took him out of that offense, it looks way different. Yeah. Goddard's impressive. Devontae Smith's important in that offense, but A.J. Brown is the guy that they go through in the passing game, and he's been a fantastic addition since last year.
Yeah, and since they had that kind of slow start the Eagles offense did, and you can argue that they're not as good as they're elite as they were last year, but since A.J. Brown and the Eagles had a slow start kind of connecting earlier in the year, it's been lights out ever since. And I kind of would want to see his numbers if he didn't have like the first 2 or 3 games or so where he kind of got off to a slow start. What would his numbers look like? Is he even trending towards Tyreek Hill's direction? Give me the next guy, because the next guy is pretty interesting if you want to talk about, like, really, I think like a second half like resurgence.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes back to that Cowboys offense. CeeDee Lamb, Cowboys receiver. He's had a resurgence, and so has Dak. And it's kind of crazy when your quarterback and your alpha receiver are hand-in-hand playing really well. Your offense is going to look really good. First downs, he's second in football. Receptions, he's third. Receiving yards, he's third. He's been, like, I was kind of shocked at how slow that Cowboys offense was through CeeDee Lamb. He was kind of having inconsistent performances. Wow, I just hit the mic. Crazy. The stat that stands out, most yards versus man coverage this season, CeeDee Lamb. So he can win in zone. We've seen him sit in zones and attack zone defense. But against man coverage, 1v1, he's basically been unguardable. And that's why he's in a group with A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill, because he's been that kind of guy this year.
And CeeDee's gotten a lot of flack over the last couple years of, you're not a wide receiver 1. Like, you could be, or even you could even be like a 1A or a 1B situation, but you're not the clear alpha number 1.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks hasn't even been what they thought he would be for the majority of the year. He's kind of heating up towards, the final stretch of the season, but that addition hasn't necessarily been what Dallas thought it was. Yeah. But CeeDee Lamb has stepped into the receiver that Dallas thought he was, and not the guy that, was getting question marks of, can you be a number 1 in past years. Tight end, I think it's, it's
become
pretty
back
simple.
To being obvious again.
Yeah. Now that Kelsey's just said it. Now that this guy is healthy,
Taylor Swift.
Travis Kelce.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
no, Kelsey, listen, missed the first week. Shout out Hawkinson and Laporta, but Kelsey's missed a game, and yet he's back to being first in practically every category. Sorry, NFC North.
You know who's first in yards per route running for tight ends?
George Kittle, 225.
Nice. Look at that.
Off the dome.
Let's move to the offensive line, and we'll start off with offensive tackle. We have 2 plus some honorable mentions.
Yeah, it's very interesting when we talk to offensive line because it's tape versus numbers. I try to incorporate both of them, like the eye test versus, okay, how are we grading out? What are people like? How are we evaluating them? I think the first is relatively easy. It's Penei Sewell from the Detroit Lions. PFF grades them both really well in the passing and run game, and obviously I lean to both. I try to have more balance. But he's only allowed 1 sack this year. His pass blocking efficiency is number 1 out of all tackles in football. He's 4th in pressures allowed. He's only allowed 14 pressures. It's kind of crazy, so that pressure percentage is low. And when we think of that Lions offensive line, they've been quietly a great unit, and he's one of the biggest reasons why.
Yeah, absolutely. Left tackle.
Left tackle. Yeah, and coming out of Oregon, top pick for a reason. One of the top 6 pick for a reason. Top 7 pick for a reason.
No, move to left tackle.
Yeah, from being right tackle. Yeah.
Tristan Wirfs.
This was a little
we
bit.
have 2 left tackles here.
We do. I know you don't like that. It's just the way the numbers worked out. Pop in the film. Pop.
Move to the other tackle spot.
Yeah, Tristan Wirfs. Shout out Darrisaw and Trent Williams. They've missed a couple games.
Yep.
They've probably played at a higher level. But one of the things with the offensive line for me, it's a grind of a position. You got to play every game in my eyes to be on an all JM team. So, and Jordan Mailata fought for it. I went to Wirfs because he's been a better pass blocker, and I value that slightly above the run blocking game in this generation of football. 4th in pass blocking efficiency. He's 3rd graded out in pass blocking. Pressures has been pretty low. Tristan Wirfs.
It's kind of crazy how many of the top tackles have missed time this year.
Yeah. Thomas being another one for you guys in
Andrew
New
Thomas,
York.
Laramie Tunsil. You said Darrisaw missed some time.
Missed 2 games. Trent Williams.
There's 3 guys who I could easily see also being on this list have Trent Williams. You said just missed time too. So 4 guys that could easily be on this list. But hey, you're more valuable. The best ability is availability, they say. Let's move to the interior, offensive guard.
I think this guy doesn't get a lot of love, but he's really been the best guard in football maybe the last 2 years. Last year, he's really good. He started to come back.
I think every all-jam team that we've had so far, I think he's been on, I think this is our third one that we've done. He's been on at least 2, if not all 3.
I believe he's been on all 3, and he's been good. Last year, I believe he was an all-pro too. Chris Lindstrom, Falcons guard out of Boston College. He grades out first in a lot of different things. And watching them last year, he is one of the reasons why they've had such a good run game with Arthur Smith's offense is because he is so athletic that they can move him around as a puller, or if they're going to keep him right there, go 1v1 or step up into the second level. He's been fantastic. He's second in pressures allowed at the guard position. Chris Lindstrom, shout out you, sir.
I will say this anytime that we talk about Chris Lindstrom. And by the way, second little note on Penik, he has jumped back and forth between left tackle and right tackle. So if I hinted that I didn't fully know that he was a left tackle, it's because he has jumped back between right tackle and left tackle this year. Chris Lindstrom, though. Back to Chris Lindstrom. I will say this anytime that his name comes up, I think he is the best mover. Like, he just moves the best out of any interior offensive lineman out there. Like, you want your best athletes being tackles, right? About guard, it's not just about moving in space. I'm not even talking about moving in space pulling for Chris Lindstrom. I'm talking about going from the first level to the secondary level. That first level double teams, getting at a guy's hip, and then boom, jetting to that second level. And it looks like he's levitating. Like, it looks like Lindstrom is literally levitating. And I almost see that athleticism and think he's like a tackle, because that's what tackles do with their athleticism, with their quickness, with their foot speed. And Chris Lindstrom has that at guard, and it's really impressive. Let's talk about the second guard.
Brandon Scherf, Jaguars guard. They signed him for a big contract when he was leaving the Washington Commanders. He's been pretty darn good. I know the run game hasn't been great recently, but he's not the reason why they've been struggling in the run game, IMO. But pass blocking, he's been a dude. He's always been a dude. First in pass blocking efficiency. He's only allowed 14 pressures, which ranks third out of all guards in football. He's only allowed 1 hit. And if you're going to play the offensive line, you got to make sure your quarterback stands upright. That is a huge factor. So, Scherf, you get my nomination and spot.
Center.
We're going to center, folks. Jason Kelce. This is an obvious one, but Frank Ragnow out of Detroit. We talked about how good their line has been. That's another reason why, especially on the interior side. But it's Jason Kelce. You mentioned with Lindstrom about he's the best mover out of all offensive linemen. Jason Kelce's right up there, and he had been for a long period of time. He's only allowed 1 sack this year. Pressures, it's first among all centers. He's only allowed 1 hit, just like Scherf. Pretty obvious one, in my opinion.
Is Kelce going to retire?
We've said Jason Kelce's going to retire the last 3 years, and he hasn't. He just keeps playing. He's a dude.
He's good.
He's so good.
It's almost like he's gotten better.
Yeah, he's like fine wine. Ages perfectly.
I think he might have been better the last year, the last 2 years, because what he's done the last 2 years it's just been absolutely incredible. But the fact that he hasn't slowed down, especially seeing that documentary. I don't know if you watch that documentary, he's like, I think I'm done. My body's giving out, and it's just so crazy, all the stuff that he has to go through to get ready.
36 years old playing center.
And he just keeps getting better. So as somebody who wants Dexter Lawrence to succeed on the New York Giants, I want Jason Kelce to retire, since that's like the one guy that Dexter Lawrence can't do well against, which is crazy. And speaking of Dexter Lawrence, he could be on this list. Dalton, interior defensive lineman. Is Dexter Lawrence on this list?
He's my number 2 spot, and I will segue to Dexter Lawrence because he has been a freak of nature playing nose guard, man. I mean, I want you to talk about him, but basically he's been the best pass rusher in the interior defensive line, arguably, and he's not playing a 3-tech.
No.
Amazing.
I mean, I think who's the nose tackle from Seattle? Jones. His last name is Jones.
Draymond Jones. I
think he's the second best nose guard in the league in terms of win rate and some of the more advanced stuff, but the gap between them is substantial. And if you look at whether it's pass rush productivity, winning percentage, hits, whatever, Dexter Lawrence is atop all those categories, not as an interior defensive lineman, but if you look at all pass rushers, if you include interior defensive linemen and edge rushers, he's up there in all of them. And that is what's just so crazy. Think of the position that he plays, the level of difficulty. You're double teamed at a way higher rate in the interior than you are on the outside and as an edge rusher. So what he's doing is absolutely crazy. He missed his first game of his NFL career against the Patriots, week 12. Giants had a bye week 13, comes back against the Packers week 14 after the bye. Continues to look great. So Dexter Lawrence truly is one of the best, not just interior defensive linemen. He's proven that he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL at the nose tackle spot, which is really hard to do.
Especially nowadays. I mean, geesh. My first defensive line spot, interior defensive line spot, I went with Justin Matabuke out of Baltimore. He's been starting to get more and more love as the season's gone on. We've had him either in discussion or on this list prior because he, from week 1 to now, he has been fantastic. He has 11 sacks.
That's
and
crazy.
I think no one talks about it because there's been so many good edge rushers this year that I have 15, 13, 14, 12, whatever many sacks. Justin Matabuke leads all interior defensive linemen with 11 sacks. He's third in pressures too. So not only is he getting sacks, he's also forcing a lot of pressures too, which is super important. You know, it's a predictor of sacks. Sacks are a great stat, but pressure, win percentage, those predict you getting to the quarterback and getting those sacks. Justin Matabuke, free agent this year. Ooh. He's going to be a big addition for a team unless he gets tagged, which he probably will.
He's going to get paid a lot of money. You know, the market for interior defensive linemen is insane.
Yeah, always is. And I have Matabuke over Chris Jones and Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
And that is saying something.
I think we had the same two last time in last version, correct?
I believe so.
So
we might not have, but this is a while ago. I was sick.
And we'll see. And we'll see how the season ends. Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, you have listed as honorable mentions as well. Yep. Phenomenal players. But I kind of like how these younger guys are coming up and they're performing well. Let's move to the edge rushers.
It's always edge and receiver are always tough in terms of depth. There's been so many good edge rushers. Like we always, when we're in the office and we're talking, we talk about how quarterback is such a hard position. There's like 12 guys in the world who could actually play it well. Receivers and edge in the NFL right now have been ballistic and playing crazy. So there's going to be a couple guys I'm not going to have as my number 1 and 2, but they easily could have. And I know I'm going to get roasted in the comments, so I'm saying that now. Khalil Mack, Chargers edge, is my number 1 spot. He leads the league in sacks with 15. Obviously very important. He's also getting turnovers, which is very impressive. 5 forced fumbles, which leads the NFL this season. Hurries and pressures, he's top 5. Pass rush productivity, he's 7th. Khalil Mack had one big game where I believe he had 5 sacks in a game, but yet he's still producing each and every game. On a defense that's been struggling, Khalil Mack has not been a problem. In fact, he's been one of the best defenders in football.
He's going to turn 33 soon.
He's been really good.
Old man, look at my life.
Shout out SUNY Buffalo, baby.
I'm a lot like you. I thought that was Paul Simon. Second edge.
You know this guy really well.
I do.
Cowboys edge. Micah Parsons, big pressure guy, jackknife. Been more of an edge this year. And they've been pretty much strictly using him as an edge. Obviously, just to move him around. Finally. He's been that good.
Take one of the best athletes that we've seen from an edge rusher. And why are you putting him an off-ball linebacker? Stop that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did.
And rightfully so. Pressures, he's first. Pass rush productivity first. Hits, he's second. Hurries, he's second. Win percentage second. Easy. In terms of Micah Parsons, the predictor, like he's been fantastic. Dan Quinn's defense, has been elite, and he's been a big factor. Why? Shout out Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Danielle Hunter. So many edge rushers could have been on this list.
Browns fans and Steelers fans are screaming right now.
And I get it. I don't blame them.
Screaming. And guess what they're screaming about? They're screaming that they can't comment that Myles Garrett's better than TJ Watt. TJ Watt's better than Myles Garrett. That war, one of the things
Crazy.
that we're going into the football coverage side of things. Anytime you say something about Myles Garrett, it's the TJ Watt stands that come out, and then anything you say something about TJ Watt, Myles Garrett's better.
I'm waiting for Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals in the AFC North to start talking about him. He's been very good too.
Oh, the Bengals fans don't care.
13 and a half sacks. I'm just saying, and also shout out Josh Allen of the Jaguars.
Josh Allen of the Jaguars, not the other one. Linebacker.
Easy one. Fred Warner. Slam dunk. I mean, when you got 3 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions, which is first out of all linebackers in football, 2 sacks, 107 tackles. He's graded out as a top 10 player rating. Defensive grade by PFF. Number 1 at linebacker. Number 2 in run defense. Number 8 in coverage. He's allowed the lowest rating out of all linebackers in coverage. All pro consistently, and he keeps on proving why.
Inevitable.
Another guy.
Second time we said it.
Next guy, TJ Edwards, signed a big contract this year, in free agency from the Eagles to the Bears, and he's proven why the Bears defense has started the turning around since acquiring Montez Sweat during the trade deadline. He's top 20 in PFF defensive grade, run defensive grade, coverage grade, and pass rushing grade. One of 4 linebackers to be able to say that this season so far. He's got 2 sacks. He's got 2 interceptions. He's got a forced fumble. 131 tackles. He's a ball magnet, man. And he's been helping really turn this Bears defense around, what Matt Eberflus was trying to create since he's been there in Chicago.
That defense is really, that defense went from really struggling, and now they're one of the best units in the NFL towards the second half of this year. So
they have guys at each level.
Cool to see. Cool to see. I personally, my Giants bias is going to show.
Bobby Okereke.
No, you got it right. Bobby Okereke. I would have loved to see Bobby Okereke.
As a Colts fan, I would have put him on there.
I know.
There is no reason why he's not on there other than TJ Edwards. I've been really impressed. Statistically, it is so close. There's no blame that,
4 forced fumbles,
which is top.
2 interceptions, and I'm pretty sure there's been 2 other interceptions that he's tipped up this year that have landed in another Giants' hands.
Okay.
So that's 8 turnovers that he's forced. So I'm putting Bobby Okereke as an honorable mention.
Absolutely an honorable mention. I love that, Justin Penik. And I would say it's so close for me. I think it might have been a little biased that I know what Okereke had been and TJ Edwards had been. Okereke has taken a jump, but TJ Edwards' jump from last year to this year has been so impressive to me.
Yeah, you would think that Edmonds would be the number 1 linebacker for.
They signed him to
Chicago.
a bigger contract too.
They did 100%.
Yeah.
Earlier in free agency too. Yeah. Let's move to cornerback. We have the secondary, and then we're done.
Yeah. This one's nice and brief. Deron Bland. The guy's got 5 pick sixes this year, NFL record, 8 picks, which leads the NFL. I could say more. I won't. Another reason why the Dan Quinn Dallas Cowboy defense has been unbelievable.
Defensive player of the year.
There's talks. I think if he gets double digits, you've said that in the past, double digits, I think it's more of a slam dunk, like you said. Someone gets to 20 sacks and he stays at 8 picks, it's a discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is interesting. I think it's going to be, that debate is going to be a fun one. MVP is going to be a miserable one. Second guy, secondary, we've mentioned this Bears defense. We got another one, Jalen Johnson. He's been so good. Now, this guy and the next guy have had missed time, and I usually like guys who've played every game. Mostly at the offensive and defensive line. But that said, Jalen Johnson missed 2 games, and guess what? He still got 4 picks, which is tied for second most out of our cornerbacks. Mm-hmm. Whoops. Completion percentage allowed, he's 4th in football. Passing yards allowed, 1st. Rating allowed, 1st. Yards per reception, 2nd. Can't get the ball by him. No one's catching the ball on him.
No, and, Robert Schmitz is a Bears friend that, I have, and anytime that he's posting film of defense, just seeing how Jalen Johnson flows in zone and passes off responsibilities and not just covering grass, but you want to cover the guys in your grass. And I feel like that's one of the main priorities when you're in zone coverage. And Jalen Johnson just does that beautifully. It's he knows where he has to be before he actually gets there. And he knows what an offense is trying to accomplish, which means that he could put himself in the right spot. There's reports of a huge contract extension that's been offered to Jalen Johnson. We'll see if he accepts that. I think it's worth every penny, and Chicago fans seem to be, right behind it, that they want Chicago to pay this guy. They certainly got the money to do so. Give me the final corner.
Paulson Adebo, Saints cornerback. You're going to be seeing him this week.
I will.
Just saying. Marshawn Lattimore has still been a dude, but Paulson Adebo has been amazing for the Saints defense. I said Jalen Johnson had 4 picks, tied for second out of all CBs. Guess what? Paulson Adebo is tied right with them with 4. Passes defended, he's 5th. NFL rating allowed, he's 5th. He's not allowed a single touchdown this season. Forced incompletion percentage. That means you're breaking up some passes, right? 3rd highest out of all CBs. He's been huge. On a Saints defense, it's kind of regressed a little bit. You still have DeMario Davis. He's been a good part of that.
Yeah.
He's not been an issue at all on the back end of it.
Safety. We have one familiar name.
We do.
And then a name that's not so familiar.
At safety, I'm going to mention in a second. Shout out Martin Emerson, by the way. He's had a good game last week. Cleveland Browns. Want to shout him out. That's a name, man. He's played 4 picks or something.
Emerson, New Jersey.
That's right. Love that. Jesse Bates, Falcons safety. He's been on this list basically every freaking time we've done this for a reason. 5 picks, 101 tackles. Both are second in the NFL. Second, whether it be safety or the NFL. Forced fumbles, he's got 3. He's got the 4th most passes defended at the safety position. Run defensive grade, he's 3rd out of all safeties. Dog, all pro, book it now.
This next player is one that I've been fascinated by this year, and kind of glad that we're at the point of the year where you're comfortable putting him here.
He's just a versatile player, man. He is a coach's favorite player for a reason.
And who is it? Antoine Winfield Jr.
Maybe. No, it is Antoine Winfield Jr. of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He does everything well. 4 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 97 tackles, 2 picks. He's all over the field, whether they're asking him to come up and run defense or play in a cover 1 deep safety, which is crazy to me where you have one player who could do both of those things, maybe at not a high clip, but that said, he's forcing incompletions, highest percentage in football out of the safety position. He's allowed the 3rd lowest rating, which is very impressive too. So you're forcing incompletions, and you're not allowing the quarterback to have success against you when you're in coverage.
Turnovers.
He's forcing turnovers, whether it be via the ground or the air.
Yeah.
He does everything, and he's such a big part, man. He's out of Minnesota, like, everyone said he's a guy that might not be the biggest player coming out of the draft in terms of size, but
he was smart.
He's smart. He's instinctive, and he plays hard.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that it's translated to really good NFL production because, like you said, not everybody wants to, I want to coach up the athlete. But I think Antoine Winfield really showed where it's really tough to get out of college. What Antoine Winfield was, he was a single high, he proved that he can be a coverage single high safety. When there's so many safeties, it's like, look at me make this big hit. Look at me run downhill and make this tackle. And that's not, you're going to have that come up in the NFL, but that's not really what the majority of a safety's job is, really. And it's, I think him forcing all these turnovers and having these sacks and forcing these negative plays, that's something that I fully wasn't expecting out of Antoine Winfield, but he's come in and he's surprised and he's continued to develop really, really well. So this to Antoine Winfield, I've been trying to find a reason to do like a short on him. I've been talking to you about him all year.
I know.
All year, kind of privately.
All the time.
Like all year, like, man, he forced another turnover. I want to try and do it. And I just haven't, it just hasn't lined up where I've gotten the time to do it, and I'm finally glad that we're talking about him. Know that privately I have been giving Antoine Winfield his flowers all year. But also he's a player, I know he could take some chances. He's a player that will take chances, and he's sometimes a hit or a miss guy. But when he hits, it results in good stuff for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Dalton, honorable mentions Geno Stone and Javon Holland.
I love Javon Holland.
Who we have talked about all this year as well. Dalton, that is it. This is our version 3.0.
3.0.
Of our all NFL JM team. We'll do one more, and that will be the final one for the year where we'll decide what's our final.
It'll be the last one of the regular season for sure.
Last one of the regular season where we'll decide kind of like who our
all pros.
All pros are.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it lines up with the rest of the NFL. All right, comment, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think. Let us know who you would include. Let us know who you would take out. Peace, and we'll see you next time.